Missing her dead husband too much, woman gave birth to her husband again after almost 10 months of pregnancy. When he was a child, she made him call her mother. When he grows up, she lets him call her wife. Two birds with one stone. The woman's name is Xiao Mei. She and her husband, Xiao Shuai, were childhood sweethearts. When they grew up, they were together for a long time. When they were on a trip, they were involved in a car accident. Xiao Shuai was killed instantly. Xiao Mei couldn't take the shock, so she went to her mother-in-law's house. He wanted to dig Xiao Shuai out of the tomb. Then he took Xiao Shuai's genes. He wanted to clone him in the hospital. Xiao Shuai's mother didn't agree, but on the second day, Xiao Shuai's father came to the door. He gave Xiao Mei the genes of Xiao Shuai, but the old couple couldn't see the clone being born because they were leaving the house today. After getting the gene, Xiao Mei rushed to the hospital for surgery. She went home to nurture her baby. Her belly soon grew. In no time at all, it was time to give birth. The baby was born exactly the same as Little Marshall when he was little. We'll call him Little Marshall for now. Little Marshall grew up quickly. He was very much like Little Marshall. He would bring girls over to play with him too, but the baby was still too young for Mei to worry about. But what she didn't expect was that a few neighbors came to talk to her about Xiao Shuai. Xiao Mei thought that Xiao Shuai had made a mistake. The neighbors had come to complain to him, but after hearing what the neighbors had to say, she realized. It turned out that the neighbors had found out that Tiny Handsome was a clone. The neighbors thought it was ethical and moral, so they wanted to denounce Xiao Mei, but Mei didn't care and left. And on Tiny's birthday, mother and son waited late at home, but none of the neighbors invited came. Xiao Shuai was very confused and kept asking Mei why, but Mei didn't know how to explain. She could only tell him. And to protect Little Marshall. She took Little Marshall away from here. She took him to the beach where he lived before he died. In order to take care of Xiao Shuai, Xiao Mei works from home every day. In her spare time, she sleeps on the sofa with him. She sleeps with him at night. Little Marshall has asked about his father, but Mei always said a few words about him, because she always thought it was because she had to get out of the car to pee. That was the reason for his tragic death. For a moment, mother and son were silent. The boy pushed the woman down and said arrogantly,
"Now I can do whatever I want with you."
The woman was stunned. For a moment she couldn't tell who was in front of her. The woman's name was Xiao Mei, because she missed her late husband, Xiao Shuai, too much. So a few years ago, Xiao Mei took her dead husband's genes and raised him as a clone, looking at the little handsome man in front of her. At that moment, Mei was torn, because the little handsome boy in front of her, her husband when he was a child, especially when Tiny Handsome just said the words, she thought that her husband was alive. At that moment, Xiao Shuai's friend came. He called him away. Only then did Mei calm down. But in the blink of an eye, Little Marshall had grown up. He looked exactly the same as the dead Little Marshall. Mei brought him breakfast as she always did, and she thought that the man lying next to, she thought it was a boy lying next to him. But the next thing she knew, there was a foot sticking out of the blanket. The next thing she knew, there was a girl, and then a girl appeared. Little Handsome's girlfriend, Monica. Looking at the two of them in love, she was heartbroken and walked away. But then Tiny Handsome came out after her and told Mei that his girlfriend was moving in. She didn't want to but couldn't refuse. She couldn't say no. But she spent the rest of her days. She watched Tiny Handsome and Monica show their love every day. But Mei fell silent. She never started talking. Even when Tiny Handsome and Monica made food for her, he would find reasons to refuse. He didn't want to share Tiny Boy with anyone else, even though he was now his own son. At the end of the day, Tiny Handsome brings his girlfriend to say goodnight to Mei. When he saw his mother's strange behavior, although he sensed that something was wrong, but he didn't take it seriously, he turned around and went to his room with his girlfriend. The next moment was the hardest for Mei, because on the other side of the board was the sound of Tiny Handsome and Monique having an affair. And by the next morning, Mei couldn't hold back her desire any longer. He saw Monica out running. He turned around and went to Tiny Handsome's room. He gets under a man's covers. The man thought it was his girlfriend. He turns around and puts his arms around her, but then he realizes it's his own mother. Scared, the man got out of bed and put on his trousers. But his mother doesn't get up, because in the eyes of her mother, Xiao Mei, this should be her husband, Shuai, because the man looked just like her dead husband. That's why she had cloned him. That's why she gave birth to Little Marshall. But he couldn't express it. And at that moment, Tiny Handsome's girlfriend, Monica, came back from her run. When she saw Tiny Handsome up, Monica came right up and kissed him, and tried to do something indescribable. Unbeknownst to her at this moment, Mei was under the covers. Luckily, Handsome still had a shred of sanity. Pulling Monica out of the room, Mei probably realized how reckless she had been. She sat outside in the sun. Tiny Handsome was playing with Monica. At the sight of his mother, Xiao Mei, Xiao Shuai jumped at him. Perhaps it was a remnant of her memory. Tiny Handsome acted too close to Xiao Mei. Monica was angry when she saw him. By the end of the day, Monica looked at Xiao Mei's back and tried to say something, but she was scared away by Xiao Mei's eyes. And then, one morning, things took a turn for the worse. An old man suddenly appeared in front of Xiao Mei's house. The old man was Xiao Shuai's mother, who had died. He didn't know that Xiao Mei had cloned Xiao Shuai. The old man looked at Xiao Shuai with disbelief in his eyes. Xiao Shuai felt that the old man in front of him was very familiar. He kept asking the old man who he was, but the old man didn't say anything, because it wasn't Shuai. He had no memory of Shuai. The old man just walked away in silence, but little Marshall seemed to have discovered something. He came into his mother's room in the middle of the night and asked. Seeing that his mother wouldn't tell him, little Marshall went crazy at dinner time. He locked himself in the bathroom for a day and wouldn't come out. His girlfriend, Monica, couldn't take it anymore. She packed her bags and left the house. Xiao Mei didn't want Xiao Shuai to hurt herself anymore. She finally told the truth. She showed Shuai a picture of him before he died, but he couldn't accept the truth. He grabbed Xiao Mei by the neck. He threw her onto the bed. He began to question her again and again. Xiao Mei, who was either his mother or his lover, but Xiao Mei didn't care, because all she cared about was her dead husband, Shuai. Although Xiao Shuai had no memory of her husband Xiao Shuai, but it was enough that he looked the same. At that moment, Xiao Shuai could no longer suppress the emotions in his heart. It was as if he was possessed by little Marshall in an instant. He started kissing his own mother. He even did something unethical. And afterwards, little Marshall took his luggage and left the place of iniquity, because he didn't know how to face Xiao Mei. He didn't know who she was to him. He had no choice but to run away. Although Xiao Mei had continued her love for Xiao Shuai, she had a little satisfaction. But Xiao Shuai is not Xiao Shuai after all. He had to end with regret.